Well, hi, welcome to the final chapter of this book, Chapter 14. We're going to get into this thing called aligning images. And so this first section, I'm just going to go straight to a website that I have. And it talks about, so here's the code we're going to be looking at. So here we have vertical align. And so there's a whole bunch of different alignments we can put inside of there. We got baseline, sub, super, top, text, middle, bottom, so on and so forth. So right here, this vertical aligns is what's going to be the text that's aligned, or the item, I should say, because it could be an object, it could be anything. It's going to be the thing that's aligned to this vertical line. So we got to span my span. So we're using an ID within a span to basically get that. So there's baseline. So baseline says it's going to be aligned with the parent. So this previous text, it's going to align with that, and at the bottom part. If we go to sub, well, that's like a subscript, so it's kind of lowered a little bit. And super is basically like a exponentiation, so it's above the text a little bit. Then we have top. That means it's going to align to the top of the text that's it's next to, which doesn't look much different. And that's text top, kind of the same thing. I'm sorry, top is going to be the top of the web page, whatever that is. So the top of where it's currently at. So if we're inside maybe a bracket of some time, or some type of a div tag, whatever, it's going to align to the top of that. The text top, it's going to do just what it says. It's going to align to the top of the text that is the parent. Middle, it's going to align to the middle of the text, so we kind of see it drop down a little bit, and the top of the text aligns with the middle of the text to the left. Bottom, it's going to align the text bottoms, or I'm sorry, it's going to align to the bottom of the parent, which in this case is the line before it. So if there was multiple lines, it would probably align to the bottom of that. Text bottom, same thing, it aligns to the bottom of the text to the left. So 0 pixels means it's going to align to the 0, which basically aligns to the line next to it. 10 pixels means it's going to basically be aligned 10 pixels up, which pushes the other lines down. 25, even more. Negative 25 goes the opposite direction. Negative 50 goes the opposite direction. 1 centimeter, again, it goes up and pushes the other one down. 10%, notice that so it depends on the sizing of the text. It's going to basically push itself up 10%. There's 50%, and then there is initial, which basically kind of resets the whole thing. So let's kind of take a look at those in the code itself. So I'm going to look at this first example, and I'm going to open it up in Notepad. And so what we have is we have all of this text that is, we've got all these alignments here, but most of them are commented out. So the very first one we have is the vertical align baseline. Everything else is basically commented out. Okay, so I save it, and then I'm going to open it, and I'll do a refresh, and I'm in the wrong one, so let's basically, we're in example 2, let's go to example 1. Let me open it. So as we can see, our graphics are now aligned to the baseline. Now it looks like there's a little space at the bottom of that image, but realize that is the actual image itself. The actual image itself has a little bit of a margin in the picture itself. What do I mean by that is if I open up this picture, notice that there's a little white gap at the bottom. So this is the true base, this is the true bottom of the image. Okay, so we go back to Notepad, and I go ahead and comment out this top one, and I will then comment out the next one. So now this next one is a text bottom, and we're not going to probably see any difference. So when I do a refresh, shifted a little bit, so it basically aligned to the text bottom, so which is kind of a cool thing. Are these might be PNGs, so that is probably a transparent background. So if you notice that when we did that, it actually took the actual picture and aligned it to the bottom. So that's kind of cool as well. So we did see a little bit of a difference there. So I'll come back over here, and now I'm going to wrong one. So this one is now aligned top. Let's see what happens when we align to the top. Not much of a difference, is there? Well, it's still thinking. Hold on. It's still thinking. Well, maybe not. So let's just close it and reopen it and see what happens. So double click on it, and well, that is frustrating. Okay, we'll do it a different way. So now we'll see that it shifted down a little bit. Now notice that like the L and vel there, that is, and the top of D, that is the top of the text. So notice that it's aligned to the top of that now. So let's change that. And let's go to the next one, which is now a vertical align top. That one was text top. And let's see if that changes at all. It shifted up a little bit because it's going to go to the top of the line, the actual line itself. So it did shift up just a little. Okay, so let's do the next one, which is align bottom. So now we're going to do this align bottom right here. I save it. I come over here and this is really frustrating. Okay, so now you'll notice it's hanging down a little bit past the line because we do have things like a Q that hangs below the line. Now it's going to be in line with that. So we come back over here and let's go ahead and shoot. And now we are going to do align middle. So we'll save that. Or maybe not. This should just open right up. We're going to go through all the browsers today. Might want to go get a beer between while things open up. So here it is, align middle, and you'll notice that these pictures are perfectly right smack dab in the middle of the text. I'm going to uncomment something down here. And what that says is the second image, we're going to make that a width of 40 pixels. Okay, so we kind of get a little better feel for what these pictures do. So the first image will be 22, the second image will be 40 pixels. So let me go ahead and refresh this. And well, apparently both of them did. So anyways, let's see where we're at. I'm trying to figure out what. So we've got well, I don't have anything selected there, so let's go up here. Okay, so here's vertical align middle. Let's do a refresh. And that we can now see the text is truly in the middle. So kind of some neat things in order to basically get pictures and text aligned with each other by using this vertical alignment CSS tag. So it's kind of a really cool, very powerful item to use. Okay, so let's go back to the book, and that's kind of what this first section kind of talks about. They talked about the text top, bottom, text bottom, the middle, and so on and so forth. So now let's go beyond that, and now we have this code where it's got this big rainbow in the center, and I believe that is number 7 here. So we open a big 7, we open that guy up, and basically this is what it looks like. Okay, and it just basically puts this right smack dab in the middle. If I resize my screen, you'll notice that graphic stays right smack dab in the middle of the screen. Okay, so how does that work? Well, if we take a look at the code itself, we'll see that we've got our HTML says we want the width to be 100%, we want the height to be 100%, and the background is going to be this rainbow dash while PNG. And it's going to be center and then center no repeat. So it's going to be centered this way and centered this way. And then no repeat means it's basically going to have just one picture. And then we just basically have the items just come up. And that's what it looks like. Now, let's do this. Let's take it one step further. And let me close that, and let's come over here, and I've taken number 7 and I've added a bunch of text to it. So we open this guy, it's the same exact thing, except now I've got a bunch of text on there. You'll notice that when I scroll it up and down, the graphic goes with the text. It does not stay centered. Okay, so realize that it's background, so that means the text will go over the top of it, so it is the background text. Now what if we did this? What if we took it one step further, and what if we said repeat? What would that do? Well, if I come over here and do a refresh, we now have it repeated. So it is a background and it's repeated line by line, column by column, and it basically becomes, and there's a way to make that background stay where it is and not move. And I think we're going to cover that a little bit later. So just be aware that we have that option as well. Okay, so another option we have is, let's go to this next one, which is 8, and it's going to look exactly the same. Not much of a difference, but let's take a look at the code. And when we look at the code, we can see that now we're using an image tag, CSS tag, that basically says the position is absolute. The top is going to be 50%, left is 50%, width is 600 pixels, the height is 336 pixels. So we've established that the picture is always going to be this width and this height. We got a margin left of -300 pixels and -168 pixels. So we've established that we want the margins to be inward, but we got that 50%, which then what that does is this. So think about saying I want the item to be 50% in. Well, that's 50% in on the right edge. So on your side, be right edge. And then when we say the margin is negative, that shifts it over even more. So I believe that is, so the margin left is 300 pixels. Notice that the width is 600 pixels. So it's half of the width. And notice the 168 is half of 336. So it's basically half of the height as well. So what that does, that places that picture right smack dab in the middle of the screen, no matter how we size it. And then we go ahead and just put this image out there. Okay? And that's how it looks. So again, if I were to resize the screen, that image stays right smack dab in the center. Now, let's add some text and see what happens here. So, I go ahead and I'm going to open up 8B, and we'll see the image now is on top. Now, let's take a look at the code and see why that's happening. So when we open it, I've got this here, that same exact style. I haven't changed that. All I've done is add a bunch of text. But the picture is at the bottom. Okay? So the picture's at the bottom. What if I were to move that picture at the top of the text? So I'm going to basically put it here at the top. I'm going to do a save. I'm going to come back over here and do a refresh. Same exact thing. So what we're saying is that image is there. That's all there is. But the other one was a background. So it truly becomes a background image. This one's just an image that's on the screen. It doesn't matter what's there. This is always going to be in the center of the screen. Okay? So something something to think about. This is not all that something you'd want to do in real life unless you wanted a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes here and have this always on the top. That's fine. You could actually then make that, you could change that to a transparency, maybe use one of the transparency features to make that a little more transparent so we could see stuff behind it. So a lot of different options there. Okay, so continuing on. Yeah, so here if we did not include all of this width, height, and then margin left, margin right, top, it would basically look like this. Okay, so until we add all that, that puts it right smack dab in the middle. Now the key feature is the margin left is half of the width, the margin top is half of the height. Now, if we look at this next item, it's just an index. Here we have this cat. It's right smack dab in the middle. So if I resize it, what happens to the picture itself? It pretty much stays right smack dab in the center of the picture still. So let's take a look at the code there. So if we look at the code, we'll see that this is now using a JavaScript to basically do this. So here we're getting the image from this website. We're telling it the width and the height, and that's the figure class. Up here we should have a class. Okay, so we're using the class center, and so center image says position is absolute, which basically absolute means fall in place to what is there. And then we've got a script that says a var is the image, CNT. And, I'm not going to go into all to the JavaScript because that's not what this class is about. But we do have this script that then has the top, the left, and then we've got the margin. And it says take the height divided by -2, take the width divided by -2. So what this is doing is the same exact thing as that previous example, except it doesn't care what size the picture is, because we always take it divided by -2. And then again, as we saw it a second ago, it was 300 or 600 -300. So if you took 600 divided by -2, you'd get -300. And so that's really what this is doing for us. It's doing the same exact thing as we saw a second ago, except that it's basically doing the calculation for. So if you want to use this, just copy the script, put it in your code, and then make sure you have the style center, and you'll basically will have the same exact results. Okay, so this next one is kind of a cool one because it's really a neat image that takes up the entire background. So let's take a look at it. So if we open it up, there it is. So a really neat picture. And again, if I resize the picture, we can see that the picture will stay the same size, except we do lose some of the picture. We might have a minimum width and maximum height. Okay, so let's take a look at the code and what they are doing. And there we can see that we have a body CSS tag that says font size 100%. We've got HTML, we got the margin set at 0, padding set at 0, so that means there's going to be no margin, no white marks on the outside. The background is going to be this beach.jpg, no repeat, center, center, and fixed. A fixed means that's where it is. You cannot change it. If you try, absolute says if I have some other things kind of come in, we can kind of push it around. Fixed says no, I'm stuck here, I'm anchored here, you can't move me. And then the background size is cover, which means it's going to take up the entire space. So I come down here and I've got my div role main. So here is my, well, basically what it's saying is we're going to take up the entire body. So we got the role main. So it's a background. That's exactly what it is. So I did this. I went ahead and added some text to it. And this is basically what it looks like. And I actually changed the text to white. So you notice I can scroll up and down, because again, that picture is fixed. It will not change. And if I were to resize it, again, that picture is going to go with the size of our screen, and the text will move around. So that's truly a nice background picture that's going to it's going to basically always take up the background. It doesn't move. Okay, so let's the next one we'll talk about is this guy, and this is using an SVG picture. Again, SVGs take up little to no space. Not a whole lot of color there. They're almost like a GIF in the sense that there's not a whole lot of colors you get to use. There's not a whole lot of color palette, I should say. So if we take a look at that guy and we open it up, we can see that again this picture takes up the entire screen. So again, let's take a look at that code. So here's that beach 5 SVG. It is basically 4.5 megs, so that's a pretty good size picture. So there must be a lot of stuff going on there. So I'm going to open this up with Notepad again, and let's take a look at it. So here I've got my body is set to font size 100. I've got the margin set at 0, padding set to 0. Here's my beach SVG, no repeat, center, center, and fixed. Back up. So the same exact thing, except this time we're using an SVG. And again, here's my role main, and basically says which goes ahead and grabs all of these different tags. So let's do this. I did the same exact thing. I went ahead and added a bunch of text to it. Let's see what it looks like. And boom, there it is. So notice I can scroll up and down, and that picture stays right where it is because it's fixed. 0 margin, 0 padding, and it's basically there. Okay. So it says, since the raster formats like JPEG or PNG produce artifacts and display larger than their original size, it's a good idea to use SVG images. So again, remember we talked last chapter, talked about raster, and that's when we try to make a picture bigger than what it is. We get all that little choppy, stair-steppy stuff, and we call that bitmappy. But SVG will never ever have that, so because it is data and not so much graphics per se. So it says here that In conclusion, creating image-rich layouts means integrating images throughout your pages. Experiment with aligning them using relative and absolute positioning and floats, depending on your needs. In this chapter, you've discovered 3 specific alignment situations that you might find challenging to do on your own. Now explore how they can be used, so on and so forth, and basically go from there. So, been a fun book. Learned a lot with all of the different imaging and resizing and raster and dithering and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll see you down the road.